I kind of had a little bit of a prediction of how he got into wood carving, and just tell me if I'm right. Okay, so I just imagine you one day, one
All
night.
right, story time with Iceman.
He got like really drunk one night.
Oh, there you go.
And then he went out to his front lawn and he had a machete in his hand. And he just started wailing on a tree. And then like he passed out.
I have anger issues.
And then like the next morning he sees and there's like the Virgin Mary on the tree.
Virgin de Guadalupe.
And then like a light shone down on you and you were like, this is it. This is my calling.
I'm gonna be wood carver.
Anyway, that's my prediction. I don't know if that's how it happened, but you know.
And the carving was crying.
Yeah. Like blood, like sap coming from the tree.
In the 90s, here in the U.S. Well, in Mexico, there was this thing, and it was huge. And I've never known what the equivalent name is in the U.S. It was when you got a bag of chips, you would open it up, and it would have these discs, and they had like Looney Tunes,
Pogs?
maybe, and then you would like put them in a
Pogs,
pile
dude.
and throw them on the
Pogs.
and then like flip them. And it was huge when, at least in Mexico, when I was
It
a
was
kid.
huge
Pogs.
here in the United States too for like 3 years.
Pogs is the name.
Pogs, yeah. It came from Hawaii. There used to be the milk carton tops, and they even invented the game there. And they brought them over here, and then made them super popular with like that, pre-made slammers. That's what he called slammers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dude, that was huge. One time I lost like most of my Pogs against my brother, and I cried.
I lost my favorite Pog.
I did. Like I lost. In Mexico they call them pesos.
Oh, yeah.
Pesos. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unhappy Cyclops, episode 37.
Woo!
We're getting started here with a dynamic duo. You know them, Iceman and Blanco.
All right. I like ice cubes.
Yes, you do. Yes.
What do you like, Blanco?
What do you like?
What's your verb?
What's my
After all these years, you still like ice cubes. How are you guys doing? All right?
dude? Doing great, fantastic.
Yeah.
You had a good
Happy
week?
to be here.
Yeah. It's been a good week.
Happy
It's gonna be
Friday.
a great week.
I had an amazing week.
Yeah, you had a great week.
I had a great week.
It's gonna be a great weekend.
Let's
I tell
talk
you what.
about your week. But first, guys, we have a special surprise for everybody. We have a special guest tonight here at the Unhappy Cyclops headquarters. One of two, if I might add. I mean, or three, actually. We're just bodies like that. But anyway, he is a local reduction artist. You can find his art currently at Kettle Art Gallery in Deep Ellum. His name is Nick Glenn.
How's it going?
How you doing, man?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Thank you for coming over.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Spending your Friday night with a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
That's kind of Friday night.
That's a dream, right?
Welcome
That
to the
is
show.
the
Can't
dream.
wait for the after party.
We had ourselves a little photo shoot.
We got a little photo shoot action going on, you know.
It's great.
Pretty good.
He
pretty
comes
good.
in, it's like, here's the oil and the dressing room's back there. What kind of podcast is this?
The best kind.
Guy.
Yeah.
You know what you signed up for? Check him out on Instagram and Twitter at _Nick Glenn. That is _NICKGLENN.
Yep.
And also nickglenn.com. Same spelling.
Yeah.
Right?
NickGlenn.com. Yep.
As usual, find Unhappy Cyclops also on Instagram,
us.
Facebook, and Twitter at Unhappy Cyclops. We actually wanted to give a big shout out and thanks to all of you people who have been like commenting on our posts and who've been giving us shout outs and giving us words of encouragement. We really appreciate that. Please keep giving us your likes.
All
Yes,
the likes,
absolutely.
all the 5-star reviews we're getting.
the
you know,
5-star.
just like,
Absolutely. So yeah, and also Blanca was actually telling me that we're about to be on YouTube
Yeah.
pretty soon.
Look out for our latest episodes on YouTube. We're trying to, branch out to there. And so Iceman's got those uploading.
Yeah.
And you're able to
We're
check it
gonna-
out there. For people who like to stream, I know I personally put on YouTube more than anything else while I'm working
throw
on
on
the computer.
YouTube on the background on your 17th tab, as you're like just working away.
They start blending together.
We're there.
All the
we're
sounds.
There. Yeah.
I just love the commercials. You know, that's where I'm at. So
yeah.
so
Definitely no commercials on ours, so don't even
Yeah.
worry about it.
yeah, I think we're pretty much under the radar still.
I think you just care about your listeners.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, actually, as soon as somebody offers something, a commercial, every
we will
5
sell out
seconds.
so fast.
So fast.
Half the episode
So
commercials.
fast, Nick.
Living the dream.
So expect that coming up soon, guys, and give us a listen, give us a like, give Nick like, not really a listen, or I guess today it's a listen.
Give
Yeah,
me a look.
man.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
for right now, yeah.
So speaking of,
Feel like-
what can our listeners find on your social media?
Basically progress of my work and finished products of my work. Instagram especially, if you check that out, I like post a lot of progress pics.
Cool.
And progress, in my opinion, is like the love of it, the love of doing what I do, the art. And it's a lot of woodworking. So if you're really into kind of like not traditional art, but something that is either defined as 2D or 3D, it's kind of what I do.
So it's more of the process is more important than the finished product.
Well, yeah, you can buy the finished product, but if you know how I got there, it kind of means a little more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
By the product, not the experience.
Yeah.
So check him out, guys, on Instagram and Twitter @_Nick Glenn and nickglenn.com. Let's get started with you, Nick. We would like to know, and our listeners want to know just a little bit about you, your background,
Yeah.
your story, your origin story.
My origin story.
Yeah.
Ways used from, you know.
Yeah, give us a little vocal resume, if you will.
Yeah.
Sure. Texas through and through. Born in
Yeah.
Houston, raised in Houston. Got out of Houston. Went to school at Texas State in San Marcos, and then I lived in San Antonio for about 6 years, and that's where I kind of got my start. Probably was in San Antonio.
Your start as far as art is concerned?
Yeah,
you
as
mean?
art. I studied art at Texas State in San Marcos, and then I moved for a job to San Antonio, and there I had a lot of support. I mean, San Antonio, I love Dallas. I really love Dallas, but San Antonio is like a great community that supports each other. And so they I think San Antonio is great for letting me fail a whole bunch and developing my art. Like, they're very forgiving and allowed me to kind of get to where I am now with my art. So San Antonio, and then I moved to Austin and was living in Austin for another 5 years, and then I'm here now. So been all over Texas. So
Texas through and through.
Through and
just
through.
like you
That's
said.
Yeah, no lie.
So
Making
Nick,
your way
this is,
north, yeah.
This is a very Dallas podcast. We go.
Don't bring that San Antonio crap in
Yeah.
here.
I know. No, I was very, very aware to cover myself there.
We do not want to hear about Austin.
No. You notice I got out of Austin.
How did you get into wood carving?
It's basically I used to study printmaking at Texas State, and I was real into relief carving, where you carve a big block and then you make a print or mini prints from it. And so I did that for a long time, and basically I was doing that, and you start at a small scale, and then my professor was like, "All right, you're doing real well at this small size of relief wood. There's a thing called at University of Texas every year called the Steamroller event, where they do relief printing, but it's so big they have to use a steamroller to get over it. So it's like I ended up doing like a 4x8 piece.
Oh, that's cool.
That was like 4 feet by 8 feet, and you can't print that in the studio at the university. So I used it at the event, and so I kept getting just growing the size of my art, and at one point, and printing it's really hard because the paper alone is like $100 for a sheet that big, and so and I was selling my stuff for not enough to cover that cost. And so I had a show in San Antonio at one point, and I had probably 4 to 8 pieces to put up, and I didn't have the funds to actually print it with the paper. Mm-hmm. And so as a just mode of desperation, I wanted to be a part of the show. I just painted the panels so you could see the image, and I just put the carved wood up that was painted black and white, really. And that sold so fast. And I was just like, it was just accidental. It was me being poor and
That's awesome.
Hey, need and desperation,
yeah.
dude. That's where
yeah.
that's where the brilliant ideas come from.
Absolutely. Out of that, I was just kind of like a light bulb going, oh, okay, I'm going to start doing this. So for the longest time, I did carve big panels and then painted them like white and then rolled on the black so you could see the difference. The image would pop out. And to the point where the University of Texas at San Antonio commissioned me, actually bought a whole series of mine about for probably 16 pieces for one of their new music buildings, and it's still there now.
That's
And
awesome. So cool.
And so like that point, I was like, man, okay, this is the medium I need to get into. And up until now, like it's kind of formed. I mean, this was like 12 years ago. And so over the 12 years, I've developed it into where it is basically woodworking. And it's, you can tell it's wood. You can see the wood grain. It's stained wood. It's carved stained wood. And I build it out to where it's almost like a sculpture.
Right.
And so instead of being flat and I wanted to have dimension, I want to do everything I can that medium allows me now. So I just keep pushing myself, to keep pushing to make something different.
I love your pieces that have a different perspective. So depending on the angle in which you are looking at the piece, there is, you know, something
follows you around the
there.
room.
Yeah, it just eyeballs you.
Yeah,
Hate,
just,
with hate and despise.
It checks you out.
Yeah, and just like, you look good today. You're
That's
like, thanks,
awesome, dude.
Thanks, Wood.
I mean, yeah, like you were saying, like it being carved out of wood and everything. It just has that, even like the timeless feel to it, where like, I mean, this piece can last like for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you're still on trend, like of what's going on in terms of like the art and whatnot. So it's like timeless, but with a touch of trend.
I'm glad you pointing that out.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're saying that because it's definitely something I aim for. I want it to be, if it's someone put it away in a non-climate controlled storage unit for 50 years and be able to pull it out and it looks just as good as it did the day they bought it. Right. So I take all those, woodworking elements and make something that's like a nice piece of furniture, but you're hanging on your wall, has a great image, and it means something to you. So
nice, man.
Do you have a recurring client or clients?
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
Collectors.
Yeah, I do.
Commission frequently.
And this is another shout out to San Antonio. A couple of them are.
Son of a bitch.
A couple of them, they for every couple of years, I get a commission from them to do something special.
Cool, man.
And so it's like I have some really great supporters, and in Dallas too. I mean, just through Kettle Art, which I've been showing at for the last probably 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely.
I have repeat customers and people do commissions, and I'm happy to do it. And I'll take everything that someone's willing to give me, and it's awesome. And I love the support, and I love that I could kind of do what I love. So
That's awesome.
Would you mind giving us the address of like your most prominent customer?
Sure.
Is that something we can do?
Sure.
All right, guys. Is this a good time to take a break?
Yeah,
Let's
dude,
take a
let's
little
do it.
break. We will be right back with Dallas's Nick Glenn.
Yes.
Not
Dallas.
San Antonio.
Dallas.
You asked for an origin story, so this is what you get, man.
Every time he
coulda
says that,
lied,
it's going to
Nick.
just default to
We're
Dallas.
going to
was
give you a
born.
new origin story. Eisman, go.
So this is one time.
And welcome back from the break. This is the Unhappy Cyclops.
Perfect.
Yep.
And welcome back to the Unhappy Cyclops, episode 37. We are here in the studio with Iceman, Blanco, and our special guest, local reduction artist, Nick Glenn.
What's up?
Blanco, we're just going to go ahead and hand it straight up
let's
to
just
you.
jump. Let's
jump
go.
right in.
Nick, super happy to have you on the show.
Oh man, thanks for having me.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the process. I love the process of art, and
Sure.
I love that on your Instagram you have your process, like how you go through it and the different pictures, which are in. I can't say this enough. Love your work.
Oh, man.
I love your medium that you work with. I work a lot with wood, and so
Sure.
I think it's really cool. But
That's
just in
awesome.
a different. What do you look for? Like, what is your favorite particular type of wood to work with when you're picking as you go through with the wood? And then what are kind of the tools that you've been drawn to or that you find are easier to work with as you go through your process?
Type of wood it's because I can stain it whatever color.
Yeah,
I
so you
want
don't
to.
like sniff the wood and it was like, oh, I want this, 1987 bluebird family living in the tree.
My
It's
God.
yeah.
That would be amazing if I could actually afford that kind of stuff. But no, it comes down to just I use mostly probably poplar and alder and oak, and just whatever I can get order online. What's just quality that's not crazy expensive, because initially it's going to be, I'm going to stain it a dark color, so when I carve it away, whatever I carve away is revealed as the image, so it'll be a lighter color. So it's more about quality of stains and quality of tools using, like you asked before, like the kind of tools I would use is just basically a Dremel. If you're familiar with those, just a small router. Don't want to get too crazy with it, but
Wait. I have no idea what a Dremel is or looks like. So please.
it's like a little handheld rotary tool that basically is like a drill, but doesn't have a handle.
Spins.
And it spins. It's kind of like a router bit, but you can carve with
I
it. It
see.
moves really fast. You
Which
can hold it like a
makes
pen.
sense when I think of your work. Makes a lot of sense.
So you do it
Dremel,
all by,
huh?
you do it all by hand.
All of it by hand. Yeah.
That is awesome to hear.
It's a lot of work.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
It's a lot of detail for the listeners, you
Sure.
know, who might not have seen your Instagram yet. Check it out at _Nick Glenn. Just like it's really impressive, just very detailed, handmade type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had opportunities to use like laser etching and other things using a computer because I do play around with vector art and Photoshop and stuff like that, which is fun. But I've played with that before, but I haven't. I've always come back to just doing just manual tools because like I can alter it as I'm carving.
As you're going.
Yeah, because if I have this, I can always go back and when I'm doing it, I'll make changes as I'm working on it because I might change what I want to do halfway through, and I have that power to do that. I have the ability to do that. So if I make the image digitally and I do a laser, it's I'm done, and that's the image I'm making. But and it's also kind of the a meditation to it too. When you're in the middle of it, you kind of just let your mind wanders, and you just are able to create something that's kind of just from your psyche.
I'm sure the noise of the Dremel, I'm guessing it makes some sort of
It's like
motor noise. It's like
It's like best way to describe it would be
a
like
little
sleeping
zen.
with a fan on, like where there's like a white noise at all times. I mean, I'll wear headphones and stuff while I'm working, so I can. I mean, I have to have a soundtrack when I'm working, but there is that drowning noise that's behind it. That's kind of like, I guess, best way to describe it would be like the heartbeat of what I'm working on.
Yeah.
Little side question: you mentioned that you have to have a soundtrack while you work. What kind of music? What kind of soundtrack do you use to work?
It's kind of the mood and what I'm working on. Depends on well, I mean, it depends.
No, totally.
Like to get over the like you're describing the sound of the Dremel, the sound of the power tool. There'll be depends on the mood. When I get into it, probably metal. Probably listen to
a little
something
heavy metal.
Yeah, something like Kill Switch Engage or something like Mastodon or something that just power through it. So it's like just get into that groove.
I like your work even more now that whenever I see it, I'm gonna
You're gonna be
think there's a
thinking
high
that.
possibility that this was written to some Unforgiven 2 or something.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that.
Yeah. Some
Yeah. I think
some Meshuggah.
I love.
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
You just kick the power tool on. It's like
Slamming it on the wood.
Even though it's the smallest of all power tools.
I know it's a small power tool.
You're like,
And I'm dribbling like a hummingbird.
but in my fingertips, it feels like a jackhammer.
You need to.
He puts his little army man next to it, so it can seem like.
You need to film yourself working, but with like the music playing, live in the background. You just
right.
Yeah, kind of like was it Old School where they kidnap all the people, in the Old School they kidnap their
Who do they kidnap in Old School?
Blue. You're my boy, Blue.
Yeah, you're my boy.
Oh yeah,
Blue.
oh yeah, for like the pledge.
The
Yeah,
hazing.
the pledge.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
And they're in that van. They have that Metallica playing as they go and
Yeah.
kidnap all the people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically, yeah.
Old School, man. That was a good movie.
That was a good movie.
That was college, huh?
You're my boy, Blue.
Snoop-a-loop.
Bring your green hat.
I have a question for you, Nick.
What's your question?
And this is my question. So there's a pattern whenever I look at your work. A few of your pieces depict different animals interacting with women.
Yep.
What is the inspiration behind this series?
I've been awesome. I've been lucky, I should say. I've been lucky enough to work with some great models that I've met throughout just doing art. And a lot of them have been repeat models for me and kind of developed into muses, which is kind of this weird term that artists will use. And it's a person, for me, it's someone that inspires me to push myself with my art because for whatever reason, they're trusting me with their own image to depict them in a good light, I guess. And so I've been lucky enough to work with some of these people, and most of them are women. And basically, I use their inspiration to make a piece of art. And whatever I choose, whatever image I choose, I kind of think about it, and it develops into its own theme. So it just happens to be that 90% of the people I've worked with are female. And then I use that to depict a message I want to portray. And it's usually not too obvious of what I'm trying to get across until you read the title. My subjects of my pieces are kind of more obvious, I think. And I've been going through a lot of transition in the last couple of years with my personal life, moving from Austin to Dallas finally. Been trying to get up here for a couple of years. And when you make a giant move like that, you leave a lot of people behind and a lot of things behind, like a job and relationships, and a lot of things fall through. And so moving to Dallas was basically like wiping the slate clean and starting all over with my life. And the last couple of years, all the pieces kind of reflect that if you look at it. And the titles, you can tell, kind of are like, one's called Letting Go, and it's like letting go of my past, and one's called A False Sense of Security, and that was after a breakup I had, and it was just something that I had to do. And so in some way my art has kind of reflected my life, but in just these past couple of years, you can really tell. And I think using the female figure and animals as an interaction between that, kind of as a way to subjectively show what I'm going through in some sense. And so you can take what you will from looking at it, because you might have your own meaning, but each depicts what I was going through at that moment when I created that piece. And I like the whole woodland animals kind of thing was always a development of, especially when I went to where you could tell it's wood carved, when you can see the wood grain, you can see what I'm actually working with. And it's kind of, you want a natural theme with something like that. If I did something that was very stale and very plastic, I think it wouldn't go well together, in my opinion, at least. I could probably be completely wrong if someone tried to attempt that, and it probably turned out amazing. But for me,
you're right. The medium fits.
The natural medium of it.
I was looking just at this piece. It's a woman with a rabbit.
Yeah.
Man, look at
insert name.
At the fur.
Yeah.
It's
like pointillism.
It's not, but
it's
but with texture.
Yeah.
Like you see the woman's skin looks like a different texture than the rabbit's fur.
Sure.
But you're doing it all with the Dremel on the wood.
Yeah, same bit. That's my main, for my personal goal. If a woman's wearing a dress, or a person's wearing a dress or a shirt or some cloth, I want that, even though it's wood and you can tell it's wood, I want it to look soft. And if it's, of course, like in that one, the rabbit, I want it to look like it's fur and like you could basically pet it, and even though it's made out of wood. So, yeah, that's not my own. If I didn't, I really like portraying. That's a challenge for me, especially with my art that I enjoy incredibly, because if I can't portray what I'm trying to get across in the wood medium, I don't think I've succeeded. If it looked flat, if it looked like if the fur didn't look like fur, or if it looked like it was like...
Yeah, if it just looked, everything is like, just points.
Yeah, I don't think I achieved what I tried to do. I don't think I am the artist I want to be if I couldn't do that.
So I was curious about how... So you said you mentioned you had different models, right?
Sure.
Do you go off of like a photo shoot and you try to just choose like different angles, or do you just kind of like... I don't know if... Going off of like a still life type of thing.
I think you're right. 100% hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
That I'll spend a whole day with a model, and we'll just pick different locations, and I'll shoot 1,000 shots. You know, and as you probably know, you shoot 1,000 shots, you're gonna get 100 usable, if that.
Yeah.
And so, of course, and I'm not a great photographer by any means, but I can definitely manipulate something I see, I can always see something that could eventually become something special.
Right.
So I'm not a great photographer, so it's 1,000 photos, and then I might have 100 usable, and then be like, oh, this could be something amazing. So yeah.
Nice. Was there anything like challenging, like when when doing a wooden piece? Is there anything like crazy happened where like a piece of wood like just chipped off?
100%.
Like,
Yeah.
How do you get
I
into
lost
it?
my arm. Takes it off.
All the red is pure blood.
I know, right?
In all my pieces.
Is there a crazy instance like that you can remember that's like a piece of wood just like split in half, or I don't know?
Oh yeah. On a piece I did about 6 months ago, I was working on something. I was really getting back into it, and it was something I was really. I had a lot of hopes for that piece.
Yeah.
And it still exists, but when in the middle I was carving it, the wood itself just split down the middle,
man.
and like just I don't know if it's humidity change or something random. So when I was doing that, it split down the middle, and I had to play doctor and fix it, and it still exists and it still looks good.
Yeah.
You won't be able to tell that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's what just 10 years of teaching myself woodworking will get. I can salvage it, but yeah, it was like right towards the end too. So yeah, my heart sunk at that moment, being like, oh, I got another week or so of work just to keep this thing salvaged, just to salvage it and make it as good as everything else I've
Nice.
made. But yeah, definitely happens.
Stay on your toes, man.
Definitely
Gotta
happens.
keep them art pieces up.
Yep.
Wood is unforgiving, you might say.
Yeah.
Nick, the first piece I ever saw of yours was actually at an art show over at Kettle Art.
Yeah.
And it's called Of Life and Thereafter. It's on your Instagram for the listener. If you want to check it out, you do have to scroll down a little bit. I guess it's an older piece. And what it is,
Oh yeah.
what's
yeah,
interesting about this piece is if you look at it from the left side, you see a woman with flowers, and as you move around the piece
Yeah.
and you make it to the other side, you see a skeleton with a snake.
That's awesome.
And it's obviously amazing, but what I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
could you give us an estimate of how many hours that takes? Because that looks like it takes a
carving
while.
every single.
And the perspective and the planning and the coloring,
Yeah, and you remember that one? That one was really big too.
very big.
Yeah.
I would say, I mean,
It's
Like yay by yay.
Yeah, it's like 6. Yeah, so by no, it's probably about 5 feet by 6 feet, maybe bigger.
Wow.
yeah, it's big.
That's huge.
And yeah, that was an undertaking I just had because since I'm working with wood, I've just pushed myself. I push my boundaries on what I can do every time I take on a different piece. And at this point, I was still painting the wood, and so you can't tell it's wood, but an image is still comes out of what I carve after I paint it. So this was at the tail end of this before, and I think, in all honesty, I think that piece really turned me towards the direction I'm at now, because that one piece was probably the biggest undertaking I had taken at that point for my art, and I really think I bit off more than I can chew when I was working. Yeah, at the time when I was working on that. So. I remember, and I didn't have the tools to make that piece, like the proper, like if I have what I had now, it would have been no problem. But I was literally working on my porch and had like a handsaw and was just kind of going at it like that. And I had ruined.
Or drunk, hitting a tree with a machete.
Yeah.
Pencil or machete.
I mean, who knows what the origin story could be?
His story is making a lot of sense right now.
Yeah.
I'm just
I'm
just
come a
gonna
long
throw
way.
it out there.
I'm starting to believe Iceman more and more.
You can probably break apart many of my stories. It'll form that one story.
Yeah.
Nick, before we wrap this up,
For anybody that's looking forward, what's coming?
I've always been into art that has a practical use to it, even though other than just sitting on against a wall and admiring it, I like the idea, especially since I work in wood, that it could have some practical use. So I've actually started a piece where it's basically a piece up against the wall. It's a standalone piece, but then if you basically unfolded, it turns into a dining room table.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
So
awesome.
you walk by and it's a standalone piece. And then if you decide to have company over or something, the frame will actually fold out to the legs. The piece of the wood that frames the piece will become legs, and then the piece will fold down from the side, the wall, and it'll actually be kind of like a cutting board style texture on the other side, so don't have to worry about damaging the actual image. And the backside will be a nice finished piece, and that would be the table. And then after you're finished, you fold it back up, and it becomes a piece of art that's on the wall. You never know it's a table.
That is
And
awesome.
That's what you call multifunctional artwork.
Yeah, no,
That's awesome.
Absolutely, that's kind of my goal. I've always liked the idea of that art that, if you're a cook, you create art in your food. So why not have art, display art, or be art, or give inspiration for other
Well,
art?
it's like you said,
So,
you like to keep challenging yourself. And this is a
Absolutely,
brand
yeah.
new challenge. you
I
know.
don't want to get bored with what I do. So, yeah.
Eisman and Blanco. As
Yeah.
usual, you guys were horrible.
Dude, awesome to have you on.
Yeah,
dude.
man,
That
this
was
is
amazing.
great,
Yeah,
dude.
man.
That's
I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks for
Sure.
coming over, dude, and spending a couple hours on your Friday night,
Yeah.
off your Friday night with us. Just real quick, once again, check out Nick Glenn. He's got amazing artwork. You can he's on Twitter and Instagram @_Nick Glenn. That's NickGlenn. Also, nickglenn.com. Same spelling. Check him out. Give him a like. Give him a subscribe.
Thank you.
And he is currently showing at Kettle Art Gallery on Deep Ellum. Listeners,
Yeah, we did it.
we did it.
We're here.
We're here. This has been episode 37. As usual, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and SoundCloud at Unhappy Cyclops and Google Play.
Yeah,
we're on Google Play now as
Yeah.
well. So that's another medium you can give us a listen. At Unhappy Cyclops. Thank you again to all of you who have been commenting and sharing our stuff. That is awesome. We love you guys. And as usual, stay unhappy.
So, how did you get into wood?
Okay.
What,
Well,
That was bound to happen at some point today. I apologize, Nick.
how did you
I
get into?
apologize.
I left a little bit of a gap there, but how did you get into wood
space?
carving? How did you get into wood carving? It's funny just because
We are not adults in here, ladies and gentlemen. Just stop this recording.
I had
I was thinking like wood reliefs.
yeah.
For an
Into
interview
each other.
comes out with a biopic.
And a special disdain for the unhappy Cyclops.
What was
there we
your
go.
question? Because you're working with wood, and I find that fascinating, printmaking, all of it. In fact, God damn it, Iceman.
Okay.
Third time's a charm.
Third time. Texas State.